Herkese iyi akşamlar. Furkan
Merhabalar
Hocam,
hocam.
merhabalar. Herkese teşekkür ederim. Bekir Bey'e, Özerk Bey'e ve Sazanov, tam ismi okuyamıyorum kusura bakmayın. Furkan Hocam'a da çok teşekkür ederim. Katkılarından, sunumlarından dolayı. Şimdi benim sunumum özellikle humanities, sosyal bilimler alanında etkili olan carnival terimi ve gotik edebiyatta daha çok kendini gösteren transgression üzerine olacak. Şimdi öncelikle sunumumu açmaya çalışayım. Direkt ekran mı paylaşıyoruz, dosyada
Evet
paylaşabiliyor
hocam,
muyuz?
ekran paylaşımı
Tamam,
yapıyoruz.
ekran paylaşımı yapıyorum. The purpose of the study. The purpose of this presentation is to examine two well-known authors' terms on theory of literature, which largely affected the studies, particularly in fantastic literature. First, we will take a short look at the novel and focus on the related parts. Then we will start talking about the terms of the theorists. In later parts, there will be the search of the evidence of the manifestation of the study, drawing to conclusion, concentric nature of Carnivalesque and Transgression. About the novel, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson is an allegory of the psychic conflict of id and ego. Dr. Jekyll, who is introduced as a kind, modest, socially active, professional gentleman, has a debate with his colleague, Mr. Lanyon, over science's capacity to separate the good and the evil in human essence. However nonsensical and phantasmatic it seems for Mr. Lanyon's perspective, Dr. Jekyll insists on the need and possibility of it. In order to succeed in his passion, he works on a potion which can detach the evil side of a person when drunk. He uses the potion in his body and transforms himself to Mr. Hyde, who is horrifically violent, remorseless, and sheer evil in character, and strangely powerful but deformed in physical appearance. Mr. Hyde's social interactions always draw attention and causes great hatred and disgust on the people around him due to his criminal actions and relentless attitudes towards innocent people. He trampled a young girl and murdered a respected old man. Dr. Jekyll tries many times to get rid of his other character, but the potion he prepared before loses its effect, and he was trapped in Mr. Hyde's body and character, which leads to his committing suicide. We will talk about Carnivalesque first and then transgression and try to find the evidence of these terms in the novel. Carnivalesque. Mikhail Bakhtin, whose notions has been applied to several fields in humanities such as language, literature, philosophy, and sociology, coined the term of carnivalesque to point out a certain quality in fantastic novels. These works are the products of the archaic desires of experiencing the previous days of humankind when everyday life wasn't separated in official and non-official terms. Bakhtin claims in his work Rebellious in His World that life and death, laughter and mourning, joy and sorrow were all indispensable parts of primitive people, which couldn't be disjoined. This unity was just like double helical structure of DNA. Death was pursued as an integrated part of life. It was not the end of the road, but rather a part of it. Laughter and dignity were equally valued. Primitive people could freely ridicule the notion of death in funerals and deride their victories when celebrating them. They didn't restrict their nearly instinctive desire to express their notions and emotions freely in public until they started to be deprived from this freedom for the need of constructing a unique cultural system where official and non-official lives were uncombined, and official life where laughter and joy were considered as inferior to death and seriousness was praised and worthy. Jokes, laughter, teasing, japping were restrained from everyday life and wrecked the shelf of festival. With the cultural development, people started to overexert on protecting and improving their cultural identities. Carnival, when all kinds of limitations, hierarchical orders, social structures were neglected, became a time of relief for people when they could once again, feel the freedom in order of their previous life, which Bakhtin calls the laws of its own freedom. In a carnival, clowns and fools switch their posts, death is ridiculed and violence is appreciated. Gluttony and lust become virtuous qualities. People take the advantage of destructing the institutionally constructed norms and limitations of social life. Carnival Square becomes the place where incompatible elements merge, the secret and profane, lofty with low, the great with significant, the wise and the stupid. Fantastic elements of literary works are the reflections of the aspiration to turning back to primitive state of humanity. However much developed as scientifically and technologically the people of modern age, fantasy novels still allured them with highly imaginative adventures, characters with magical powers, extraordinary creatures. The absurdity of the story leads the reader laugh, while the horror and terror in its urge to experience the sublime. Bakhtin's Carnival, a reverse life, is rather an atmosphere than an action. This atmosphere provides necessary mental and emotional readiness for fantastic events. It's a place where there is no location. It's a time when every second is suspended. It's out of conventional understanding of spatio-temporal unity. Therefore, a break from the everyday scientific postulate, which opens the gates to endless possibilities of fantasy writers. Transgression. I examined the term generally in the writings of Fred Botting. Generally associated to fantastic literature, particularly Gothic, transgression is a distinctive element of those works which challenge the rational thinking and reason of the time, and already established standards and moral by the society. Both as a writing mode and as a way of understanding, it targets the limitations of scientific method and theory, trying to trigger excessive emotions in the readers. It creates contrasting emotions stamped from the sense of freedom with its potential to break down the boundaries, and from the anxiety it leads to when confronting society's norms and truths. Dealing with the supernatural creatures and events, or at least leaving the reader at the threshold of an uncanny moment, fantastic works guide the reader to alternative universes where violence and depravity are reapproached according to the potency of revaluing the validity of forced definition of morality. Transgression in Gothic writing become a powerful means to reassert the values of society, virtue, and propriety by crossing the social and aesthetic limits. Violence is evaluated as a means of freedom. Carnality is driven into denude the sanctified yet sometimes corrupted virtue. On the other hand, in some works, authors consider transgression as a way of delineating the consequences of neglecting or exceeding social rules. These works' overindulgence in marvelous beings with their immense power and mercilessness evokes fear and uneasiness. However, their unnaturality and being tuneless with rational thinking produces laughter and derision. At this point, ambivalence appears as the dominant emotion, leaving the reader unable to determine the exact sense they experience. When compared to that of 18th century, 19th century Gothic writing exerted most effort to discuss the duality of human nature. This is also one of the main concerns of Bakhtin's Carnivalesque, with its contrasting sides containing both animalistic features, basic instincts and desires, and the high position gained due to the technological and scientific and philosophical advancement. Ironically, these advancements form an atmosphere where humanity lost its connection with social confidence, provided by the previous conventional way of thinking and the comfort of being devoted to and under protection of religious orders. The anxiety of losing this bond became a focal of interest of Gothic writers. Gothic became a part of internalized world of guilt, anxiety, despair, a world of individual transgression, interrogating the uncertain bonds of imaginative freedom and human knowledge. However, not every excess action of indecency, violence, and enchantment can be described as transgression. Transgression emerges within the midst of obscurity in which society's rules and limitations decline its effect. In normal order of daily life, to murder a person is considered as a criminal act, yet to kill the enemy soldier in a war seems lofty. Yes, now it is part to examine these terms, Carnivalesque and transgression, in the novel. As it is stated above, Carnival is a base for all sorts of fantastic adventures. These we witness a mental preparation in the dialogue between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Lanyon that we are about to introduce some scientifically supported extraordinary series of events. This dialogue is the call for carnival. At the beginning of a carnival, we look around and see marching people marching to the square with eccentric costumes, holding colorful banners and flags, playing and singing joyful songs with funny lyrics. By witnessing this kind of parade, we get to know that something interesting with fantastic performances out of daily life will take place. Dr. Jekyll insists on the possibility to divide a person's character in accordance to his or her good deeds, good and bad deeds, becomes a carnivalistic banner for the reader who now has a clue for the further events. Mr. Hyde's existence alone fits perfectly to the Bakhtin's term as he describes carnival as a second life. Mr. Hyde is not official to Dr. Jekyll's words either. He has no official identity, no relative or friend, a job to get by, or a title. He is an antithesis to the society's regulations and definitions. Even his physical appearance cannot be easily described in everyday vocabulary by the other characters in the novel. He is not easy to describe. There is something wrong with his appearance, something displeasing, something downright detestable. Transgression in the novel is witnessed in the character of Mr. Hyde when his interaction with society. In the first chapter, Mr. Hyde, without any motives, stamped on a little girl and shows any signs of remorse for his action. Without the existence of Mr. Hyde as a second character, a second life, this act can be easily conceived as crime by the readers, but being aware of his artificiality, readers can consider the act as a transgression. As a second point of climax for transgression, after a year of his horrible act, Mr. Hyde murders Sir Denver Crew, an old respected member of the parliament, in the middle of the street again with no reason. Of course, these criminal acts are not welcomed by the society in the novel. The police hunt down Mr. Hyde for his acts. However, his existence is already bizarre for the readers, already out of ordinary life. So these acts produce a sense of freedom on the reader, who can experience the joy of being out of boundaries of his or her society. Conclusion. I would like to draw a kind of circles to make my suggestion more clear. As Bakhtin states, there is an official and non-official life in modern life, in today's society. I would like to show official life with a certain circle, with a black line, which means there are some limitations, restrictions. There are some rules in official life, and I would like to show the carnival life with a blur circle, because there is no limitation in carnival life, in official, non-official life, no limitation for acts, for body, for thinking, and pure freedom can be sensed in the circle. And as it is my suggestion, there is a kind of concentric structure in transgression and carnival life. I would like to show the transgression within carnival life, in Carnivalesque, with a red circle. And in this aspect, I prefer to draw a bigger circle for carnival life, because carnival provides more freedom than official life. Official life is full of restrictions, limitations, rules. They are usually constructed by the society, but carnival life has no limitation. And these blurriness is a kind of mist for understanding transgression. Normally, the being out of the circle of official life means a kind of criminal act, it's an excess. But if you are living in the universe, living in the habitat of literature, and if you are talking about a carnival life, these transgressions cannot be easily defined, cannot be easily noticed as a excess, as a murder, a criminal act or not. As it can be examined in the case of Dr. Jekyll, the symbol of official life, and Mr. Hyde, the symbol of carnival. Carnival and transgression have the same center in fantastic literature. Bakhtin's term appears to be more inclusive when compared to Boting's. Carnival is an atmosphere where the reader is being prepared for all kinds of transgressions. It's a departure from official life with socially constructed rules and scientifically approved laws. It can be identified with the laboratory of Dr. Jekyll, and the transgression can be considered as the time he drank the potion. Carnival is an atmosphere where the reader is being prepared for all kinds of transgressions. Sunumumun sonuna geldim. Teşekkür ediyorum.